Welcome to CloverDX Data Manager series. We're looking at transactional data management for business users. I will show you how to set up and use Data Manager to make sure your business is using the highest quality data possible. What is transactional data management? Well, hopefully most of your company's data is nicely automated by your data engineers who've created wonderful pipelines for it. But inevitably, there's going to be some need for accountants, business analysts, non-technical people, who I will call business users, to get their hands on some of the data, to correct it or verify it or apply their business expertise to it before it can go back into the data flow. You can do that quickly and efficiently with Data Manager and what we call transactional data sets. A transactional data set is basically a table stored in a database connected to Clover, where the data engineer can give some control of the data to the business users. Let's get started with Data Manager. Data Manager has two types of data sets, transactional and reference. We're interested in transactional data sets for this video. This data set, expenses, represents company expenses being processed. Most of the expenses were automatically approved in the automated data pipeline, but these records are the ones that, for one reason or another, need our accountants to take a look at and fix with their business expertise. We can see red flags on some of the fields because the data engineer is able to program comments and suggestions for what actions needed. So the Data Manager administrator can create datasets here by clicking New. Fill out the basic information about name and description, and then move to the Data Layout tab. Here you'll see a set of columns that are marked System Column. These are auto-created columns that are used by Data Manager. So you'll click New Column, and here you'll give the details about each of the columns that you'll need. The data types will need to match the data that your data engineers are sending into the dataset, so you'll need to make sure you're communicating with them about that. You can always edit these if you make a mistake. You can also select whether users should be able to edit or even see this column. The other two tabs, batching and user roles, I'm going to skip for now, but don't worry, I'll get back to those. I'm going to go to my expenses dataset here. Look first at this little bar that says In Process. This tells us how many rows of data are in my dataset and what their status is. We saw status before as one of the system columns. Now there are 4 different statuses. New, which is orange and means that no one's done anything with that row yet. Edited in blue, meaning that someone has edited the row and it's ready for someone else to approve it. Approved in green, which means the row has been approved and the data engineer will now be ready to bring that row into the data pipeline. And finally, committed in gray, which means the data engineer has already processed that row and it's set to be deleted at the end of our retention period. Let me tell you about user roles, and then I'll show you a business scenario. I'll go back here and click Configure on my dataset. Go to User Roles. Now there are 3 user roles: Administrator, Approver, and Editor. Starting from the bottom, editors can change the data in fields, but they can't mark them as approved. Let's make Adam an editor for this dataset. Approvers can edit fields and mark them as approved, but they can't change the configuration of the datasets. We'll make Albert, our accounting manager, an approver. Finally, admins can do all of that plus configure the datasets. I'll be the only admin. So back to our business scenario. Adam is going to see that there are 6 records marked new and come in to do his job. He looks at the red flags, and the first one he sees says Unexpected Category. When he clicks on it, the data engineer has already created a list of the acceptable categories for Adam to choose from. Here someone obviously just misspelled office, so he clicks Office Supplies, and the red flag is replaced with a blue one, showing that the field's been edited. Then he goes over to the other fields where purchase approval is needed. In our simple business scenario, any purchases over $1,000 need an accountant to sign off on them. The first few are pretty normal. Laptop purchases and flight expenses. often cost more than $1,000. So Adam just marks purchase approval on those. The next one, Todd took a $1,000 taxi ride. That's pretty strange. Adam finds the receipt and sees that Todd just added an extra 3. So this should be 135. Adam can edit the amount field. So he does. And then he marks that one as true on purchase approval. Finally, Matthew had a $1,000 lunch with no receipt. Adam will go ahead and mark that one as false, as rejected, and Matthew's boss can talk to him about that. Then, Adam's final step is to mark these rows as edited, which lets his boss Albert know that they're ready for him to come in and approve. Now Albert logs in and sees the edited rows, and he checks Adam's work and agrees with it. So he's going to select the same rows and click approve. That's all the work that's needed from our accounting department. Now that those records are approved, the data engineer will run their processes to automatically collect this corrected data and send it along to its destination, just like that. You'll know when they've done it because those records will then change from green approved to gray committed. The last thing I promised I would show you is batching. If we go back to the configuration and select batching, we can set a field as key for Data Manager to use to automatically separate the data into batches. This is very useful for when you've got different people in charge of different subsets of your data. Let's say instead of accountants approving expenses, we wanted our department heads to do it. I can set department as the batch key. And now, instead of all the records being together, we can see that they're separated based on department. So if I'm the operations manager, I can click and see one purchase from Stanley in my operations department. So no more days of emailing spreadsheets back and forth with the data engineers when your data needs to be fixed or approved. We can do it all right within CloverDX Data Manager, saving time, energy, and headaches.